we'll make a start because we have got so many wonderful ideas to get through. I'm delighted to welcome Helen Prince. Many of you will recognise Helen from previous wonderful webinars and sessions that we've done with Avanti. She's an absolute friend of Avanti and a genuine friend of mine as well. And she has so much a wealth of evidence and experience and everything to bring to this session today, both research-led, but also experience-led as well. So I'll let Helen introduce herself right now. Hi, Helen. Happy to see you.
Thanks, Bex. Hi, everybody. It's lovely to be invited back to Avanti again today. Hope you've all had a great day of CPD, and delighted to be a part of it. So, as Bex mentioned, I've committed my career really in the last 5-6 years to oracy and vocabulary and how we can bring creativity to life in a talk environment in the classroom. I'm an English teacher, spent about 25 years teaching English across primary and secondary. I sort of mainline Key Stage 2, 3, 4. I've been inspecting for about 8 years, and that's given me a good understanding of progression through the key stages. So everything that we talk about today comes through that lens, I suppose, of working out what it means to get better at understanding talk and vocabulary between the key stages, to allow pupils our best chance of pursuing their hopes and dreams as they go through education. Yeah, that's about it from me. I think Bex is going to start us off, but we'll be sort of bouncing a tennis ball between us for the session, so hopefully we'll keep you entertained.
We will, hopefully. We will indeed. So just some of the aims of this afternoon, building on the wonderful keynotes that we've had today, that you are the best resource ever as a practitioner. So it's really vital that you get that passion and motivation across to your students. And I have no doubt that you do that already. So we're just going to share some ideas. And we're going to do a bit of research as well, because we don't like to pluck things out of the air. We want research for all of our wonderful ideas, and specifically the how, the pedagogy behind having an ambitious curriculum. I'm going to link it to CUSP. I'm a big convert when it comes to CUSP. It's not just a scheme, it's not just a curriculum, it's a sequence. It's not a straitjacket. So hopefully those that have just boarded that journey with CUSP, you'll see that I refer to it and link to it as much as I can in a brilliant, positive way this afternoon. Picking up on Helen's point, it's all about oracy, vocabulary. It needs to be that communication, that rich communication needs to be taught, and a huge part of our learning and teaching toolkit that we have. And also ideas and resources that can breathe life across our curriculum, and they are transferable. I think that's really important, that we don't pigeonhole early years, Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2 and 3 as well. We can share all of these ideas and tweak and evolve them as best we can as well. Over to Helen, and she'll also discuss some of these things that we'll focus on today.
So really that's our key lens, is looking at how we can use our imagination to focus on these key outcomes that we're all striving for. And one of the things I'm going to focus on mostly is looking at deep reading strategies, and really using the recent reading framework that came out, which I was just delighted to read, as the catalyst for lots of those strategies. So looking at how that framework pinpoints some of those creative, imaginative activities, and underlines the importance of those elements within all of our settings. To do that, we look at things around prosody and fluency. We'll look at a whole range of resources and ideas that you can take back to the classroom and tangibly use on a wet Tuesday afternoon, or a crazy Wednesday morning, or ideas that you might want to use and take further, because you're the expert in the room, you know your class and context better than anyone. So hopefully there'll be a range of ideas here over the next hour that you can make your own, all based on the information that this comes from a really good place of understanding and knowledge and expertise through the research.
And also, why shouldn't learning be fun? It's not versus fun, is it? It's via fun, and we want to be creative as best we can as well. So I'm going to share this one with you, which should work. Okay, first of all, our reasons, and then get your phones ready because I'll have the QR code. Our reasons for teaching, and it all comes back to the children, their experiences at school. I'm sure you remember your experiences at school as well, and these are our reasons why. And it's so important to always bring it back to that. I know sometimes you do feel overwhelmed and everything, but to bring it all back to the children, that you know as professionals in your class, you know where they are and where they're going next, is the vital ingredient to our jobs, isn't it? So our reasons why. So oh, Helen, did you want to, I love this quote, can you share this with everyone?
So I think was it last academic year that Mary Myatt did a keynote with you, and this is really from some of her own work and writing. She refers to this wonderful quote from William Morris, and she takes it forward into a more educational setting where she talks about our resources and what we provide in classrooms as needing to be both useful and beautiful. And I suppose if we could personify this session in a phrase, it would be that this is to be useful and beautiful. And by beauty, what I mean is that this is something that will live long. This will give us an opportunity to pause, to breathe, and to capture all of those reasons why we came into this world of education at the very start. For some of you, that might be last year. For some of you, that might be many years ago. But I really believe we need to keep refocusing ourselves and relaunching ourselves. I have a very good friend who I go wild swimming with. We jump in some very cold seas together. I have to make myself do it each time, but it's always worth it. You never regret a swim. And she says, you can always relaunch. You can always have a relaunch. You can always have a moment where you remember and recapture the beauty of what it is we're doing. And what we're doing is useful and beautiful. And so that phrase really, which is inspired by Mary Myatt's view of this William Morris quote, is at the heart of what I want to hope we explore today.
Thank you, Helen. And we will build on lots of the work that Mary Myatt has done through story and storytelling and the power of that as well. Okay, so here is the first one. So if you get your either your QR code with the camera, or you can go into this now and just type in what you think are the most important ingredients of an effective lesson, and I'd love to see your ideas. So we've got use of key vocabulary, make it fun and exciting. I absolutely agree, I really do. And I sometimes I walk into classrooms and I think teachers have got that perception that they're not allowed to be fun anymore, because children having fun doesn't necessarily equate to learning, but it does, doesn't it? It's stickability. It all builds on those connections that we make in the brain. And if we can explore that using our senses, then it's really important. Engage children, continuous assessment that's ongoing. It's what you do naturally as educators in your room. Things that are simple, but they work. Enthusiasm, clear outcomes, being active. I strongly agree with that. Some children and teachers need to walk around the room and just be active and creative at every possible moment. Anything good that you can see there, Helen?
So I'm just focusing on that little word at the bottom, hook. And I think that's absolutely vital. And it's probably the hook. It's probably the central thing that will enable all of those other elements. Because if the hook is sufficiently engaging, everything else will follow. Everything else will follow.
Yeah.
So I'm really inspired by that. Just that little tiny word, hook.
Yeah, and it was quite interesting, just to comment on that, because that little word there, because I did some research and it was that whole double hook, and you'll see that later on. It's that hook as in you've got them in the palm of your hands, they want to learn, but it's also that hook linked to previous learning, so that hook onto something, like a physical hook as well. So I thought that was really quite interesting as well. I've not thought about a hook being like that as well. So play is in there, hooray. Let's take play into key stage 1, 2, 3 maybe. Call it discovery, call it something different, but in the end, people that are active and doing that, and sensory ideas as well, it's so important, isn't it? Curious for more, I love that. I absolutely love that. Okay, on the flip side of that, thank you so much. All of these words we'll share with you because I love this. On the flip side of that, the opposite, what are your barriers to adding your creative flair into your classrooms? What do you think are your barriers? So let's have a look at this one. And there are so many, unfortunately. That pressure, feeling overwhelmed at times, getting the job done, time. Yeah, absolutely agree. Yeah, look at this. Again, it comes back to that point I made just now about if someone walks in, you're worried that if it looks like you're having too much fun, that they're not learning. And we need to get rid of that awful, I don't know, misconception, don't we? Breadth of curriculum to cover.
Fear of failure.
Yeah.
You see that coming up again and again. And I work with a lot of schools and trusts, and I think that we are aware of not stigmatizing a mistake for our children, but we need to take a step back again and look at ourselves as a profession. And, you know, many of us will be leaders in our schools, and being happy to be wrong and to have a go and to take risks is a really important element of being creative. You can't be creative, you know, if you've seen anything Ken Robinson has talked about, late great Ken Robinson, you can't be creative if you can't be wrong. And so taking that fear of failure away and learning from, you know, it's a lifelong mission, isn't it, to learn to teach. So
never stop learning, and that comes for CPD as well. I absolutely agree with all of you with this, and that's why this has to change. And like Stuart mentioned in the keynote, it has to come from senior leaders as well, and hopefully we can sort of I can bring this to the table, all of this wonderful feedback that you're giving me, and take it to the education team, to your principals, and say, come on, let's look into this, because the curriculum is a lot different than it was 10 years ago. Let's really think about it. And when you say behaviour, which has been mentioned more than anything else here 6 times, I do wonder if children, maybe this is controversial, I don't know, but I'm going to say it anyway. I do wonder if sometimes they pick on the fact that teachers are stressed out and they're not enjoying their job anymore. And you know what children are like, they're so intuitive, aren't they? And I do wonder if it's like this vicious circle of behaviour is not spot on anymore, because it's only recently, I think, in the last 4 or 5 years. So therefore it's like that awful circle that we need to break. We need to absolutely break it as well. So all of these things I absolutely agree with. Thank you so much. That's such wonderful participation. This is obviously the greatest group to host this afternoon, and I'm really grateful to you. I had a brain a dump here, and I sort of thought, right, if it was a meal, like, and I had a starters and a medium, middle course and everything, what would a brilliant lesson have in it? And all of these things probably, and more. But you can't do all, you know, we're human beings, you're human beings, you cannot do all of this in a lesson. You might mention a few of them, but you couldn't, there's no one on earth that could sort of tick every one of these. Oh, I did this in a lesson. So I've just, for me, the ones that are growing on screen are the ones that really resonate with me. That modelling, making connections in your brain to previous learning, motivation, support, mutual respect and trust in a classroom. You are the professional. You went to university, you've done your TAs, and you've got all of your wonderful experience in the classroom. Therefore, you know what works. And sometimes we don't look at that. The reference to story, which Helen will so brilliantly explain to you later on. Good examples. You know, if someone said to me to do something new and I didn't have an example of it, I'd be quite flummoxed and I wouldn't know what to do. So having some brilliant examples on the walls or just in a book that they can refer to as well. That modelling, like I said, as well, what a good one looks like. This is my expectation, and also making sure that everyone in that room has the same opportunities and there's no mixed ability in a way. Everyone in that room should have the support from you to reach their goals. And yes, people are on different pages, but that's really important. Okay, so going back to what we've sort of mentioned this morning as well, we need to wholeheartedly affirm our dedication to teaching. We need to relaunch, as Helen put it just so brilliantly just now. I love that. It must involve a return to teacher autonomy and creativity across the curriculum for teachers as well as the students we teach as well. So get rid of that, throw it in the bin. So some wonderful ideas, and I'm just using history this afternoon as a bit of an example in this case. All of these things are fantastic standalone ideas, but to use them in isolation wouldn't be great. It's like when you go to the pick and mix. I'll use food analogies a lot. I hope you don't mind. But when you go to pick and mix and you get like all white mice, like, why would you do that? You've got all of this wonderful opportunity to pick what you want. Why would you just go for one thing? So in my head, I want my lesson to be a pick and mix of things that are relevant, worthwhile, and which really convey that teaching element. So not just looking into books and research, not just having dates in your head that don't necessarily link to others, not just about filling in closed procedure type ideas, because you can do it and that they are all very good standalone, but not as a collective. And my age-old one is, you're not going to learn much history about Stonehenge if you make it from shortbread biscuits, even though it looks lovely and it might taste delicious. That's not necessarily going to get any history learning over to the children, but there we go. So get rid of those as well. The arts, let's bring back drama, music, all of those wonderful things. And I do love this quote that I found online. So you read that now. It's when learning is purposeful, creativity blossoms. Isn't that lovely? Just that one line there. It's just so important to be creative, to read the room and think, this isn't working. They're all really tired this afternoon. I'm going to try this, and have those bank of wonderful ideas, which you'll get today. All of these slides will give to you, and we've got all of the templates as well. So a little present to you for joining us today. Okay, so a bit about the research, and Stuart did mention Professor Robert Coe this afternoon, and it's a notion and an idea and a statement that we need to remember. So that is the notion that one can enter a classroom and see learning is a misguided one. Sometimes you think, oh, they're brilliantly quiet in there, they must be learning so much. No. That's a poor proxy for learning, isn't it? Sometimes there's a need to be quiet and to have that reflection time for children, but sometimes we have to understand that when you walk in a classroom, learning can look different in every different context and every different subject as well. So teachers can be labouring under the delusion, oh, I've taught it, therefore, yeah, I've done that. That's absolutely fine. It's absolutely fine. And the there's a joke, isn't there? And I'll tell you here, I've got it here. The joke is two men in a bar, and one says to his friend, I've taught my dog to speak French. Really? Says his mate. Oh, let me hear him then. I said I taught him. I didn't say he'd learnt it. And I think that's really like quite a powerful joke to share, isn't it? That whole thing of how am I going to get those ideas across to children? It's really important. And the report there, the Sutton Trust report, is a really good in-depth understanding of what learning is, and that whole imparting your knowledge, subject knowledge, to the children as well. So although there is evidence that students respond positively to all of these wonderful ideas, be that a game or an activity, we need to remember, this is a caveat here, it remains unclear whether students are willing to invest the time and energy necessary for understanding. So you can walk in and be playing a game, however, you must remember, is it relevant? Are they learning something through this game or this activity that I've provided this afternoon? So as long as we've got that, I think, in the forefront of our mind, learning, are they learning? Then how, the pedagogy behind it is up to us as professionals, and you know your children best and how they learn. That's not to say they all learn differently, that we should create different learning styles for them all, because as Stuart once again said, that's a thing of the past. However, we need to make sure that we have that wonderful eclectic mix of ideas that we can bring to the classroom. And Ofsted stated as well, it doesn't sit on its own, so you need to link that learning to previous learning, and that's how children make those connections in their wonderful brains. As William notes, and I love this and I use it quite a lot, everything works somewhere but nothing works everywhere, and it's about you having that autonomy as a teacher, thinking they're not really learning this afternoon. I'm going to stop. I'm going to go off lesson plan and I'm going to do it this way, because last week they worked brilliantly with this medium or this format. So having that autonomy and that agency that you can make the decisions. And like I've just mentioned earlier, Professor Coe's work of look at all of these things. So I walk in and children seem engaged, therefore learning is occurring. No, that's when you come back to those wonderful comments you put earlier, that ongoing assessment, talking to children, communicating with them. So these are sometimes, or according to Professor Coe, poor proxies for learning, because we cannot rely on any of them to understand that we understand where children are going. This is a really good video. I won't play it now, but it's amazing, and it's all about the analogy of a bridge. And the first time you cross it, it's really hard. But then when you go over, you can come back another day and do another rope, and another day and do another rope. And it's from the 60s, I think, but I just think this really summarises it brilliantly. And it's about building a bridge. The first time you start and you teach something, it's hard for the children, but when you keep revisiting, it becomes easier. And I've put a cusp tick there because I find that cusp do that retrieval, that bringing back knowledge, that let's teach it again next term, because we can't teach in a standalone type way. So learning is a process of forming those connections, those powerful connections, and making it go into your long-term memory. And it's about a bridge. I'll leave you to watch that in your own time, but it's literally only seconds, but it's really important. So culture and relationships and trust, and I'm sure you'll agree all of these things are worthwhile when it comes to a classroom that is cohesive to learning. That is absolutely the right place to be. So relationships inside and outside of the classroom, mutual trust. Again, that links to behaviour and everything, doesn't it, as well? Incentives, motivation, which Pep's talked about this morning, student independence, that again, we talk about teacher agency, is about student agency, children wanting to learn. I really want to do that. Like that no ceiling limit to children's learning. We can all carry on our learning. It never stops, like Helen said earlier. Making everything worthwhile, linking it to the pedagogy, how we make those connections, that's important. And also that double hook of building on something that we've done before. Effective educators seize every chance to boost student learning when they have time, when they have resources, all of those things that you link to the barriers as well. But we really need to have in our classrooms that physical space, the clear and consistent expectations, because that will improve learning and behaviour. So again, we need the agency to create those on our own, and hopefully the habits will help you. Student agency, so creating that independence. And I always think, I'm an early years teacher, 10 years year 6, and then the rest the 12 years early years, so I did both, which was interesting on that transition time. But I went from year 6 to early years thinking, no, you can do it, you're fine, you know, having that, even though they were 4, they were doing a lot more sometimes than my year 6 were, because that's how you sort of train them in the room, and that culture that you bring to your classrooms, the physical space as well, and how you organise that. So resources, practical ideas for the children to do in those time fillers as well, and that positive climate. Yes, we can get things wrong, but that's fine, because I'm learning with you. This is a new piece of learning that we're doing, and I'm going to support you all the way. Right, so another one here. How do you think, get your phones ready or your resources, keyboards ready, how can choice and student inputs boost creativity and motivation for all? So another one, so that aspect when it comes to children choosing what they do or accessing different parts of the curriculum. Should children have choices, and when should they be heard, and that element of communication as well? Have a go and see what you think. Yes, it does. And I think with ownership comes that whole want to do more, doesn't it? What do you think, Helen?
Yeah, I'm busy typing away.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just there's a lot of research out there, isn't there? And actually there's a lot, I don't know how your school's gender balance is in terms of outcomes, but certainly within English we always have this boys underachievement issue. It doesn't go away. That's largely because of the way we assess them in lots of ways, but in particular, boys, of course, girls as well, but in particular, boys really respond well to choice. If there's a choice within each of your tasks, boys in particular respond really very well to that. And I think that the moment we give them some agency in what it is they're doing, they feel that they can create their own version of this task.
Yeah.
Then it feels like a much more exciting prospect, as opposed to you producing something that is the same as 30 other people.
Yeah. And again, I'll link it to a food analogy. We wouldn't all have what's on the menu, would we? We all have different tastes. We all have different things that spark our imagination, and in different days, we want different things as well. So again, yeah, I think absolutely agree that power, that ownership, and that sense of teamwork, that you're all together. You're learning as a collective. I think that our community, I think that's really wonderful. Pride, absolutely. The importance of learning and to see it is exciting, to light that fire in their heads and take them wherever they want to go. Like, how amazing is that? And I think early years have got it right. I really do. And I'm a big advocate for the way that we teach early years, and then it starts in year one. And like, why do we do that? They become less independent, and I just don't get it. Maybe us here on this group can change the world and take our ideas forward. But thank you for that ownership being gone.
Sorry, Beck, sorry,
no,
but I just want to pick up on the early years thing, because I don't know how many of the colleagues with us are from secondary. Do you know, Bex? Is it sort of a split?
I think it's quite a split. Yeah, I didn't check today, so maybe they can put that in the chat.
Many of us in secondary have never seen an early years classroom, but
exactly.
Part of my inspector training, and if you were ever given the opportunity to do inspector training, I do recommend it. It was incredible CPD, was to look at the whole gambit of education from early years to year 13. And that moment, as a key stage 3, 4, 5 teacher, that moment I went into early years, I won't ever forget, because you suddenly realise that there is pretty much nothing that happens in that classroom that couldn't translate really tangibly to your year 12 English lesson, or your year 9, or your year 10. And particularly concept of showing and reflecting our children being successful. Early years have that nailed. I love the way you use image and photograph to show children their own success, and this is you being really good at that. And we don't do enough of that then as we go up the years. But actually, the moment you can reflect back that success in a pictorial form, or however that might be, which early years do a lot, it has huge impact further up school.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, it is. And I'd love you. I did something for another trust, and all their secondary went to early years for the day, and it was so powerful. And they really understood that if you nail it, if you get it right in early years in key stage 1, you've got them. They love learning. They don't see it as a chore. They want to be with you. And I think, obviously not for everyone, but it's a brilliant place to start early years education. It really is. And we could learn a lot from wonderful people in the early years sector as well. I mentioned, didn't I, this double hook, so I'll move on from there, but that hook, get me in, also hook me to my previous learning, and then I'll remember. I think that's important too. So some of my ideas when it comes to games and breakout tasks, like those time fillers on a wet Tuesday afternoon, as we said, engaging interludes, a little bit of a break, often linked to communication, but again, making it fun. They provide a break, like I've mentioned, but they also help in maintaining that interest, that active participation, and reinforcing those key concepts of the lesson. You yourselves can create this a more dynamic and memorable learning experience for yourself as well. I really enjoyed that lesson. Like, hopefully you said that recently, but sometimes teachers don't, and that breaks my heart that you haven't come out of a lesson going, oh, I loved that, I really had fun doing that, and I can't wait to go in tomorrow and carry on that. And Oh, just that would be music to all of our ears if we heard that every day, wouldn't it? But again, the pressures sometimes get to us, but we're going to change that, aren't we? Absolutely. And that positive atmosphere, yes, we can link it to Rosenshine's principles in our habits and all of that wonderful research that's out there, but they're nothing new. I hadn't heard, like when I started teaching in 1999, I must admit, Vygotsky and all of that, but I hadn't heard of Rosenshine at that time. Of course, his evidence in that was there and it was on paper, but I didn't see it. I heard it at uni, but not necessarily in the classroom. So it's nothing new. You would always read the room and stop and ask questions. You'd always make sure that a child was on track, and if not, you'd support them. So again, it's not necessarily new. And another time, fun time fillers in breakouts is it's them having time to chew like that. And I love that analogy. Again, it's food, sorry, but that time that you sort of give them some questions and they have time to reflect and to sort of compose their answers and their different ideas in their head, and that's really important. So that's just a reference to Rosenshine and his 10 principles of instruction that we use in our habits when it comes to CUSP. Brilliant involvement there. Oh, there's another CUSP tick because they really do emphasise that. Renewing.
Can I just?
Yeah.
Sorry,
yeah,
before you move on, just to reiterate that point about time and time to chew, which is a lovely phrase. Yeah. It's actually one of the hallmarks of a really proficient, experienced teacher, I think. Knowing how and when and the ways that you can craft and create that time to think, because that's quite a challenging moment. There's a feeling, I think, for lots of colleagues that we have to fill the space, we have to fill it. Mm. And having time and the confidence to allow time and the behavior management skills to allow time and to orchestrate time really confidently, that allows children to think without going off task and without, looking out the window and following the whatever's happening outside in the sports fields. I think that's a really key element of that cognitive load that children have to process, and we need to allow them that time. Certainly with all of the oracy skills and oral rehearsal skills, we need to give them that time, but it takes real confidence. And I think that's a really interesting element as leaders, if you're a middle leader, to discuss and consider with your teams, but also with your peer group, as you're in the staff room or in your spaces, to think about how you would articulate and navigate that time confidently.
Yeah, and it's true as well when we talk as adults, isn't it? Like whatever we do for children, we need to think again about having that reflection time, and we need it too with new ideas and concepts too along the way. So like I said, you can have these slides, so no need to write these down, but these are some of the things that have worked for us in my classroom and Helen's classroom along the way. So hopefully it's like practical ideas. Like I said, I've got all of the templates for these that I will share with you. And some brilliant ideas when it comes to wonderful ideas, games like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, Say What You See, so catchphrase, I'll move on to that in a minute, but having those specialised subjects in rivers for year 3 or physical map features in year 4. Do you know what I mean? So you have a big chair and you make it, but again, that's retrieval, isn't it? But you're making it fun. And to have something like Slido in the classroom, but they can write their answers down, for example. Again, that interaction, that participation, it keeps you on your toes because you don't ever know when you might need to be listening. And again, that would come back down to behaviour as well. Taskmaster, I absolutely love as a programme, and so many of those elements and games you can take into the classroom. And I've got a list of tried and tested ideas that I did with one of my classes not too long ago at Avanti Gardens. Jeopardy, so you give them, I don't know, a keyword linked to your tier 3 vocabulary in science, and then they come up with the question, and that's perfect. You can easily assess what they know because they've come up with the right question to suit the answer that you've given them on screen. And again, I've got an example PowerPoint presentation that you can pinch and make your own as well. House of Games, when it comes to language and playing with language, Answer Smash is a brilliant idea. And again, I've got lots of those ideas for history as well. Like I said, Kahoot is a really good one to have within the classroom. And in my year 6 classes, and again, this is not anything new, they had a buzzer on each table, and it would be that whole Friday quiz, like pub quiz, but obviously not pub quiz, but like a history one based on the ancient Greeks, or you know, any idea when it came to just making it healthy competition. But they're also like really linking it to skills like delegating, communicating, and just generally sharing their knowledge with you as well. Also, you could do with the knowledge organisers from CUSP, you can take one of those and they can do paired quizzes. Each of, and you know, again, that's an independent task, linking to, you know, making them that agency when it comes to children, and what can they do with their few minutes that they have spare. Spot the errors. Again, that's really great for misconceptions, especially if you have Who Wants to be a Millionaire, and I'll show you some of those as well. So you can have a question, but 2 of them might be really similar, the answers, and they've got to distinguish which one is right because the other 3 are wrong, or it could be that 2 are right and 2 are wrong as well, just to make them understanding, you know, that whole debate. Again, coming back to communication. Again, things like this are supported by CUSP, which is wonderful, isn't it? It's like they say, they are a life jacket and not a straight jacket. You've still got that element of creativity, and I've got it from Lauren Meadows from CUSP, which I'll share later. Again, this is one of my little things I linked to. I think this is year 3 geography. So behind it is a clue for tomorrow's lesson, what we'll be looking at. So you ask a question and they can either answer in teams, and they unlock something, and when they know the answer, that sort of thing, and they've got like a password to the next day. Again, it just makes them curious, it makes them want to learn. These are really easy, and I'll share these with you as well. And so it stops. And I literally use ChatGPT. Hooray for ChatGPT. And if you want another session on that, I could go on all day, but it saves me so much time. So I literally put in, give me 7 why questions linked to, and then I put all of the things from CUSP in, and it came up with them. So I didn't even have to do it myself. And I did that. There's one there for Key Stage 2, and then one there for Key Stage 3 as well. It took me less than a minute. So you don't even have to do that. Oh, what do I need to know? I'll go through the knowledge organiser. Something on their head, you know, when they stick a word on their head and their friend has got to say, they've got to ask questions and sort of narrow it down so they understand what all of these tier 3 words are, from each element of CUSP, or if you're secondary, obviously from your different Key Stage 3, Key Stage 4 approach to geography or history or whatever it is you teach. Again, making it fun, that element of fun, and linking to high quality tier 3 vocabulary. I used to love this one. So a child was sitting in front of the board facing the class, and on the board was a series of either words or maps or like images, and they had to ask questions, or the class had to sort of guide them without saying some keywords. Again, that whole link to curiosity and making it fun, but also working as a team. I think that's really important. Memory games. So if any time in geography they'd finished their work, I'd always have a stack of empty maps of Europe, the world, different parts of the world, and they'd fill them in. And of course, in September, and I did do this with year 1 on a huge UK map, they were plotting on their maps Birmingham, Cardiff. They knew the capital cities. Again, you know, they were like in September they were still learning, so they referenced the map on the wall. In July, they could have done the weather forecast like really in depth. They were brilliant, so good. So again, like those little time fillers that show you that they're learning, and that you know that over time all of those things are going into their brains and making those connections. Alongside this, and labelled diagrams, poems with missing titles, maybe sort and group the words according to meaning or according to genre, that sort of thing, and define words as well. What does this mean? Like pick up a card, define it to your partner as well. Lots and lots of things when this is history as an example. So history detectives, I love that idea of what can we get from this picture. And even doing, I've done before, like, do you know, in the police dramas, when you pin things and then you do like links with string. Oh, we had great fun doing that, and then created this museum at the end of it. Sharing the questions with the children as well. I think that's really important. This is where we want to get. We want to see if we can answer all of these questions at the end, using photographs from history to really understand and take their learning forward. What questions would you ask linked to this? And again, there, how does it make you feel? Like, if you saw this, what would you do? And again, that has a brilliant link to writing, doesn't it? Because they could create a writing report and everything as well. And then also learning the facts, but learning the facts alongside images, alongside podcasts and recounts from people as well, and a newspaper article as well. And this is from my hometown of Clevedon. I've got all of these PowerPoints, so I can share them with you if you want to, and you can sort of merge your own ideas or local history into that as well. And I've just put this here, and we can sort of have an understanding of all of these things really come to life when I think of history, geography, like the foundation subjects. If your lesson is going a bit awry and you think, right, I really need them, shock them with a statistic. Did you know, like, how many people, or guess the fact, like what percentage, something linked to the past or something linked to science, a quick fire round, just those off the cuff understandings, a bank of pictures that are related to your subject, but also don't feel scared to sort of build on what they already know and then take it further. I think that's really important. Coming up with lovely rhymes and mnemonics to help them remember things, and yeah, like using the senses as well, moving around like you've said, and also linking it to story as well. So this is a bit of an idea now, and we just really want to get your ideas. This is from Helen. So Helen, did you want to introduce this one?
Yeah, I think actually let's do that one at the end.
Yeah, should we do it at the end?
Yeah,
no
I think
problem.
let's do that
I
at the
didn't know
end.
where to put it.
That's fine.
Oh, they're already typing though.
I mean,
that's fine.
It's probably
and
good
then
to have
we
like
move
flash
on.
it up so people can be thinking about it. But basically,
yeah,
it's to
that's
pull out
a good idea.
Your best idea that you use in the classroom that you know really generates that creative talk and learning that's in a creative way. So don't do it now. Be thinking about it, and then at the end, I think we'll go for
50 words isn't a lot of time, and it makes me think about short burst writing. Sometimes I used to ask my children, in less than 50 words, can you persuade me to buy this pen or something like that? And again, it doesn't have to be, writing doesn't have to be scary or cumbersome, or it can be short and quick and lovely,
and if you make it finite, if you make it finite like that, give it a word limit, it feels more manageable.
It does. So we'll move on from that, because oracy is a big part of what we want to speak to you about this afternoon. And I know that Helen has done such amazing work linked to her own experiences, but also to the research that she's done as well. So children thrive in an environment that fosters effective communication, and I'm sure you'll agree. And we need to make sure that those from less advantaged backgrounds have the same opportunities as those that have that vocabulary, that are using tier 3 vocabulary, and we shouldn't hide it from them. We should celebrate it, teach them, model all of this, because it's really important. And a quote from the foundation stage in 21, the ability to speak eloquently, this is oracy, articulate ideas, spelling mistake, and thoughts, influence views confidently and appropriately. So it gives children power, ownership, all of those things that you mentioned previously as well. Over to Helen, and she's going to dig deeper into the world of oracy and how it really can make a difference for all children.
Thank you, Rex. So I just want to share with you the power behind oracy, and I know that I maybe have spoken to you before about this in previous training, but I think that there is a educational and political shift coming. I think we are already on the wave of it, and I think that we will see in the next 12, 24 months, a big shift towards creative talk in the classroom and how we can navigate that in a really purposeful way. I also hold dear and understand the tensions of behaviour. And I know that you've all mentioned that on one of the previous threads that you were commenting on. And I think we're in a really interesting place educationally, post-pandemic. We are in a really interesting and challenging moment for our young people, who we are trying still to gap fill lots and lots of barriers that we encounter. We've got lots of gaps, but also we've got that tension of behaviour. And so I don't underestimate the challenge that we are facing, and I don't underestimate the importance of the role that you all play. But oracy is absolutely the way to navigate all of those barriers. What more could we want for our young people than that they leave us able to tell each other, tell their peer group, tell their families and people in authority how they think, feel, dream, imagine, fear, all of those elements that make us human are conveyed through our ability to articulate. And we have this incredible, powerful, uniquely powerful role as the teacher, because it might well be that ours is the only environment, our classroom is the only space where young people are talking in a productive, educational style. And we know that those endpoints of assessment obviously privilege that language of instruction. That language of instruction is how young people have to write. And unless we are enabling them to talk like that, then we do them a massive disservice, because when they come to those exam points, they won't be able to replicate that type of language. So we value all forms of language. We value everything that young people have to say. We also teach them that language of instruction so that they're able to communicate in a professional, instructive manner. And it might be that our classroom is the only place they ever have that formal language exposure. If you think of your class now, there'll be pupils there for whom talk doesn't really happen in the same way. If you look at the sale of dining tables, it's plummeted. People don't buy dining tables anymore. Does that mean people don't talk around a dining table as much as they did 10, 15, 25 years ago? Probably. And you'll all have pupils in your classroom for whom this is a particular barrier. So it might well be that your role in the classroom, this part is the most important element, because it allows us to do all of those things. Thank you, Bex.
Sorry.
I'm going to flick on. I don't think I can I? Should we go to the next slide?
Yeah, I've done it. Can you not see it?
There we go. And so the link with reading, and why I wanted to look at reading, is because of this wonderful phrase here. So this is from Rosinski's work. He talks about fluent speech and fluent reading being analogous. Isn't that the loveliest word? Analogous. I just think we should teach all our young people that word. It sounds so beautiful. Mm-hmm. And if we want to be fluent speakers, if we want to be able to talk proficiently, if we want to be able to hold our own in a difficult situation, then this is what we need to be able to do, is to be a fluent reader as well, because the two are the same. And I just think of all the children I have taught over the years, and I would think probably, you know, I've been teaching a long time, and so I'm still in touch with my ex-students who are now in their mid-30s. And I think some of the things they've said to me that they've been able to do in terms of holding their own in really difficult, challenging situations at work, you know, personally and professionally, that's the most important element of our role, isn't it? Is to be able to give them the platform that they can go and be successful and can be heard. And so to link with reading gives us a really nice structure and scaffold to hang on to ourselves as teachers. We scaffold for our young people all the time. It gives us something to use as a scaffold for our own teaching about talk. So when we're looking at how we emphasize, how we pause, how we vary volume, pitch, tone, all of those elements that build that prosody of understanding when we're teaching reading and fluent reading, all analogous with speech. And if we can do one, we can do well at the other. And so that's a real key to looking at this fluency within reading, and to be metacognitive about that with our children. So we are really being clear that if we can read this fluently, take that strategy, take those skills and use them in your talk environment and vice versa. Okay, thanks, Bex.
And again, it comes back to, I've just listed again some different ideas. So TED Talks, I love watching them, and I didn't know that there's some children versions out there, but how wonderful to listen to one, but also then to say, right, at the end of term, we're going to give one all about potentially, I don't know, a controversial topic in the news, or an element of your history. How fantastic to listen to them. Not all of them, because some of them are quite long, but snippets of them. So they are wanting more. What do you think this man said next? Or before, you know, that whole celebration of listening as well as talking and sharing ideas. I mentioned 2 times of that reflection time as well. Be ambitious. So record ideas, record them speaking, like have a podcast maybe at the back of the class going on. That's learning, isn't it? That's them articulating their ideas. And just building on what from what Helen said, I couldn't be prouder of my daughter recently. There was 25 students straight from school, so she didn't go to uni. She wanted to do an apprenticeship. And there were 25 students on this accountancy and finance apprenticeship. And the most proud comment I had, she did a maths test and an English test, and she had to do all of this in tray. The proudest comment on there was her ability to communicate and come across in a professional manner. And I'm like, I was on cloud 9 because of that bit. She can't articulate her thoughts because, as you probably can tell, I haven't stopped speaking to her for 18 years. So again, it's so important, isn't it? And and that element of like teenagers not being able to convey how clever they are or how passionate they are about something because of a barrier when it comes to oracy is not fair, is it? So we need to ensure that we give all of these ideas a go in our class and really celebrate oracy. Again, and this links to reading, like Helen said, stories are enjoyable, aren't they? We have a tendency to underestimate their power. Great stories are important for their own sake. However, great stories can do some heavy lifting for us. And this is Mary Myatt, okay? And again, it's that whole thing of being linked to disconnected facts in the mind, and like unlinked pages on the web. I love that idea of making connections as well. So moving on from Mary's work, this is what she shared with us last year. And if you want to see her keynote that she delivered last year, it is on YouTube, so I'll share that with you as well, because that's insightful and it's a great celebration of how we can bring the curriculum to life, and like Helen and I are hopefully conveying too. That element of the bigger picture, those complex ideas for everyone, not just the most able, for everyone, because that's how we close that gap. Enriching vocabulary, and that, you know, that equity for all, that inclusivity for everybody, and linked to the research as well. And the Educational Endowment Foundation is, we need to make sure that it's prioritised to allow people to access the full curriculum offer. And again, it comes back to that element of stories being so powerful. And when I say stories, like for non-fiction elements as well. So, for example, a story about World War II, that sort of thing. So a lot of learning can happen as well. And a big tick to cusp as well for having that high, ambitious vocabulary for all children as well. And here's some of the wonderful books that Mary Myatt suggests for all curriculum areas, history, geography, maths even, art with David Hockney, Bill Bryson, like all of these fantastic books. A Story of Our Earth, so like a geography aspect as well. So all of those wonderful, wonderful stories can also help us deliver a wonderful, wonderful curriculum. Oh, you see.
Cool. So bringing those stories to life, echo reading can really be a helpful element to follow. And lots of you probably use this already, but if you haven't come across it or you're not sure how to use it, then it literally is what it says it is. It's about choosing a short section of text to read aloud while pupils silently follow and then echo it back. And it can be a phrase, it could be 2 words, it could be a sentence. But if they are listening intently to your prosodic features, to the way you deliver that piece of text, to the intonation, to the pause, to the volume, to the pitch, then they are inherently learning about its comprehension. They are learning to understand what the words say. If we can read fluently, and if we can read with emphasis, it shows we've understood it. So simply by practicing over and over, that does really help young people to hang on to meaning within text. They're not just barking at the text, they're actually understanding it because they're able to mirror it back and echo it. And you can use this with a teacher pupil group, or you can use this with small groups of pupils echoing back to each other. You can use this as something you're all listening to together, say the TED Talk that Bex was just referring to, or there are lots of places you can go to find authors reading their own work, and then everybody tries to echo it back in the way that the author read their work. Poetry works really well with echo reading because it's finite. Very often it rhymes, so you've got an extra helping hand with a poem. Books that have lots of direct speech can be really helpful with echo reading. And Bex, if you just flick forward, I think we've got a couple here to show. Okay, so this is choral. So this is choral reading, which is another version of echo, but it can be done differently with different groupings where everyone's reading it at the same time. One person's reading it and then the rest are repeating key parts of it. So poetry, again, there might be a repeated refrain. This can work really well with musical lyrics. You might find that you've got a class who love Adele. Adele's great at idiom. If you're teaching idiom, go and find her lyrics. And you might want to pull out some chorus and verses. It can be from non-fiction. It doesn't have to be fiction. You could have different lines attributed to different readers. You could do call and response. This call and response reading or echo reading are really tangible and fun ways to bring words to life and off the page. And I think we've got a couple of examples of text here.
This one goes on to the framework, is that right?
Okay. Oh, I thought the next one was, no, that's fine. Okay. I'll come on to the examples in a minute then. Let's just pull out the key parts of the framework that I'm sure you've all had a look at before, but I just want to show you where this concept of creativity is rooted in the evidence, and bringing out particularly fluency is so important from what's been reiterated in that framework. This isn't new, but I'm really delighted to read that it is being reframed and re-shared as a place where real learning happens. So this is, as we've just been saying, a real good indicator of fluency. If young people can use this understanding of prosody and show us their intonation and pause and pitch. And our vital role in that is by echoing it and sharing it and encouraging children by reading with huge intonation ourselves and changing. you know, we might read a sentence one way and then we might read another, and we would explore the different nuances and connotations of that reading and that interpretation with our children, so that they're able to understand, okay, actually, if there's a real pause there, that adds drama, that adds tension, that adds intrigue. If we didn't have the pause there, maybe it adds an element of certainty. So which one is it that I want? What am I trying to convey in the way I'm bringing these words off the page? And this report talks about the importance of doing that. The report also goes into real detail about how important storytelling is. I may have mentioned before to you, but I worked with AET for about 5 or 6 years, and I think they're the biggest trust in the UK still. They've got about 60 schools across the UK, and we did some research with the schools around storytelling, and something like 70% of the primary school teachers that we talked to told us they felt guilty for story time. That was about 7 years ago now. They felt guilty for story time because they felt they weren't using the time effectively. You know, they weren't filling the pail enough for the young people. They were just reading a story. And my biggest joy in this report is how we have realised and now are sharing the absolute enormity of value in storytelling. There's scarcely anything we can do in our classrooms that is a better use of time than really inspiring, captivating storytelling. And our role as teacher is to be that driver and conduit of really imaginative story life givers, because they may not have that experience anywhere else. Storytelling might not happen apart from potentially on a screen. They might not hear those words in the same way. So this report really makes it clear that storytelling is a hugely impactful element of our teaching toolkit. Thanks, Max. We're on a bit of a delay here, aren't we? There we go.
Yeah, there is.
It's like the newsreaders when they're on location. Yeah, so the report is great at doing this, but we know this anyway, don't we? But story doesn't have to just be in a book. Story is everywhere, and the more we instill ourselves and immerse ourselves in story, the more we can build the threads of learning more tangibly for young people. So pulling out the value of story from audiobooks, from podcasts, from games, from pictures, from facts, from photography, from film, from lyrics. Everywhere you look, there is story to be found. And really, when we're talking about energizing the verbal environment, it's this kind of concept of story that we're trying to hook into. This is our hook. This is the thing that hooks us into wanting to know more. The minute our children want to know more, we've got them. At that point, you can do anything to improve the verbal environment that you are surrounding your students with, because you have got them through the hook of narrative, through the hook of story, in whatever medium that might be. And it will depend on your pupils in front of you. Some of them might not be inspired by a traditional book. Some of them will be. Others might need additional elements of multisensory learning to help them on that path. They might need to hear the soundtrack, the sonic narrative. My daughter's just started a media production degree at Sussex University, and one of her modules is called Sonic Narrative, and they are busy building up the sound behind a story. I just think that would be a wonderful thing to be able to do, is to spend some time with your classes building up a sonic narrative that's going to underpin a story. You know, you could do all sorts. She's literally got trays filled with pebbles for the person walking home at night. You know, it's great fun. But what a way to unpick comprehension and learning and understanding. You can mark prosodic features as you go. And I'm sure that this is something you've done. Nursery rhyme works really well with this. Nursery rhyme week coming up, 13th of November, that kicks off. Bex and I might have something to share with you about that in a bit as well. But here you've just got a simple mark or 2 marks if it's a bigger pause. So next to a great forest, there lived a poor woodcutter with his wife and his 2 children. Boy's name was Hansel, and the girl's name was Gretel, and so on. And you might then decide we're going to use colour. I want to underline in red where I'm going to put emphasis. I'm going to highlight in yellow where I want to have a really slow reading of the word, where I want it to really slow down. And the whole debate about that process is in itself a really key part of the learning. It really emphasizes your understanding and comprehension of the text, of the narrative. The beginning of the Iron Man is a wonderful one to read and echo with young people. And I've used this with year 2 and I've used it with year 12. And I think it works equally well because what you're trying to engage them with is this understanding of the difference your intonation can make, but also then learning it off by heart works really well. Where you've got these rhetorical questions and this use of repetition, nobody knows. Where did he come from? Nobody knows. That's a great one to use for choral reading, but also one to be learned by heart, maybe as a homework. You go home over half term, when you come back, I want to see who knows this by heart. Who can perform it? This is an assembly. This is something to do when your parents' evening is on and you've recorded it and it's playing in the background. This is something for governors to see, something to celebrate and be proud of is the articulacy and oracy skills of your young people. And to embed that in a scaffolded use of echo reading can be really, really helpful for us. And of course, non-fiction works really well as well. And particularly with when you've got, you know, Victorian London is just a gift, isn't it? Thank goodness we didn't have to live through it. But it's a gift for us now in the classroom because it was so, you know, juxtaposed between the rich and the poor and this horrendous walls crumbling, windows broken, doors not there at all, nothing to steal anyway, poorest of the poor. You can really ramp up the drama in the reading of non-fiction if you choose your pieces of non-fiction well enough. And you can take the words away and just use the picture and then get young people to come up with their own words that they then bring to life in a dramatic reading of their own. And all these elements really build into this idea of reader's theatre, where you are wringing out story and words and phrases into a dramatic interpretation that allows young people to show off a bit, to show something that they are good at. And even your young people who may be struggling readers, they can learn by rote and perform. And that's them being successful. And just like in early years where we then have that evidence of them being successful, record it, get them up on the walls, share it with real audiences, parents, governors, old people's homes around the corner, share it with the evidence of them being successful. Bex mentioned earlier about how important spaces are, and Pinterest will give you very many happy rabbit holes to jump down to see what can happen in classrooms. But just to make a reading environment as engaging and imaginative as it can be makes a big difference. You know, if only we had unlimited resource, we could do all sorts, couldn't we? But even with the limited resources we do have, you know, there's lots of stuff we can find. There is a lot we can do to create a little imaginary world to think into and get lost in a story. Doesn't have to be get lost in a book. Books can feel quite overwhelming sometimes for young people when they're left alone and that independence of reading. Yes, that's something to build to, but they can get lost in a story. And that's a good place to start, because if we hook them with the story, that will lead eventually to books, which is where we want them to be, isn't it? Okay, so we're going to whiz through a few ideas and games and things you might want to try in the classroom. And as we're going through this, remember, we want you to come up with your own 50-word, what works well for you. And some of these ideas might trigger some ideas for you too. So starters for 10 is a good place to go with books and with stories. And there are a couple of ideas there. So they can, literally, this is a 5-10 minute activity. Identify 3 words hard to spell and tell the rest of the class how they could learn them. Find a word that contains another word as its root. And you might have a whole page of text. You might just have a short piece. You might have a poem. You might have lyrics. Choose a word, identify 3 synonyms, predict 2 other words that can appear in the text we're going to read. Prediction is really important, isn't it? That can really set the understanding of what's happening. You might have 10 tier 2 words that you select and display for the week and share it. This is what we're going to be looking at this week. And within that, those are the mini challenges. So they've got that list already. Getting good at this, Bex. Well done. Vocabulary hives is a lovely talk strategy. Doesn't have to be hexagons. If that's too tricky, it could just be your mini whiteboard, because that's got 4 sides. But it's all about where you put the words and how you link them. So would you put Lady Macbeth next to the daggers? Probably. Would you put the word ambition next to Lady Macbeth and Macbeth? That's got a link the 2, hasn't it? So it's about where you manipulate the words in order to build the picture of link, of how they link and the themes. And of course, that translates to every subject area. There was a comment earlier from you, I think, Gary, about disciplinary literacy and speaking like a specialist. And this is a great game for that. Being able to speak like a specialist, we can use the vocabulary on little blocks like this, and putting it together enables us to have that building of schema in our brains, so we can link our thoughts and our thinking. Daisy chain stories are a fun idea that just builds a joy of words and builds the joy of finding the right word. It simply is that you start the next word with the letter that ends the word that precedes it. So each word must begin with the last letter of the preceding word. So with her ruthless sword, Diana attacked demonically, yelling. So every word that comes next is started with the word, with the letter at the end of that word before it.
That's good.
It's just playing with language, playing with ideas. And again, it's finite. So it allows you to say, okay, you might not know what you're going to write, but you do know the next letter of the next word. You know how each word is going to start. So it's a daisy chain idea. And that makes a nice display. Drama is just about the best fun we can have with vocabulary. We know it's a brilliant way of story embedding. We know it's a brilliant way of bringing character to life. It can be used in every subject area. I can't think of any reason why it shouldn't be used in maths and science as much as it is in music and art and drama. We can bring ideas to life, whether that be character or setting or noun or historical event or scientific, what's the word? Scientific, when people do things together. What happens when a word just disappears from your head, Bex? It's a nightmare.
You need some reflection time. You need some true time.
That's what it is. I need some thinking time and a cup of tea. Experiments. You can then, recreate as a little mini drama. Again, make it finite, make it feel safe and low threat by allowing students or pupils to know that they've only got 30 seconds. It can be a freeze frame, so there's no movement, and then you just thought tap and add in language. It can be very small scale. I know that drama is a real barrier for some people because they're worried about behaviour, but it doesn't have to be the whole class. It might just be 3 pupils. It might just be in pairs. You might hot seat the teacher in role, a particular pupil in role. You prepare students in advance to take on a role that you know will do it well for you and succeed, and then go further out into other areas. It might be that this is what happens in intervention groups, but there is a place for drama that will work if you explore it carefully. And we know it has a big impact, and is a sort of a visceral way of vocabulary embedding.
Can you see that one? No,
Not yet.
There's a delay.
It's funny that, isn't it?
Human sentences it is, Helen.
Oh, there we go. There they are. So this works on lots of levels, and for us all busy trying to teach grammar knowledge, these human sentences can be very helpful, because you can discuss what happens when you move the clause, what happens when I change the noun phrase, what happens when I add in a different verb. Punctuation can be really helpful, but again, that's drama. That's bringing it to life and making it a bit more active. Our mini whiteboards are so helpful here, but so are big sheets of paper, so are paper plates with stuff written on, so are pictures. It can work on lots and lots of different levels, allowing you to manipulate text, manipulate image in a way that unpicks nuance or unpicks comprehension at a sort of more granular level. And by making it active, it embeds, it just lasts a bit longer. Okay, here's 4 more games coming up. So from A to B is a good one, where you just show a picture of a person or an animal and another random image, anything random, literary characters, oranges, waste bins, blah, blah, and students have to just come up with an inventive narrative that connects the images in exactly 6 moves. So they've got to go from A through to A, B, C, D, E, F, A to F, 6 moves, connecting the images with a story. It's a bit like those kind of, you know, parlor games that we sometimes play at Christmas or whenever. Text speak can be quite helpful. In fact, I was thinking it's not too dissimilar sometimes if you think of it as talk for writing, and the way we use it, using image to actually focus on a story. Choosing a moment or a chapter from a story and bringing it to life as a text conversation between characters about that moment, that capture on mini whiteboards or voice notes or text talk. Maybe omitting the names so that then you can guess who it is that's interacting, performing it to the class, but you're just pulling out a moment from a story and imagining the conversation that might happen. And you can perform it, you can write it down, you can use text talk to then create the performance itself. But any way that you can capture that imaginative moment can be helpful. And then 2 more. Take a poem and change a few keywords into French or any other language. I think ChatGPT might do that for you, Bex. And then pupils have got to translate the word correctly, and that's not just a lesson for modern languages lessons. Any lesson could do this if with a text. You know, it doesn't have to be a poem, but it might be another piece of non-fiction that you're using. But if you take out, let's say, 3 or 4 keywords and translate them into another language, and then turn your young people into detectives, they've got to find out what those words are. Just builds a bit of intrigue into what you're trying to teach. And then who's coming to dinner? Think of a list of characters from your novel or play, or a group of writers, such as World War I poets. And then you've got to organise a dinner party. Who's going to sit next to who? Get some paper plates to write the names on. They can put out the plates with who's sitting next to who, and then they've got to justify why they're sitting where they're sitting. Then that can work on lots of levels. Anywhere where you've got a bunch of characters together. Might be you're doing the gunpowder plot. It might be that you're doing Wurzel Gummidge. It might be that you're doing Macbeth. Who knows? But you can put people together and group them with good reasoning behind that. So you can explore why they're sitting where they're sitting, and then they could act it out. You could bring a 30-second snapshot to life.
I love that one.
Retail therapy can be quite fun. You can save your receipts or find some or make some up, and then infer what kind of person's represented and why, or make up a receipt for a character that is in a story and get other students to guess who it might be. So if a character from a poem that you've just read was to go out and shop, what would be on their shopping list? And write that down. And the fact that it's a little different piece of paper is quite engaging. You might just want to do it electronically. You might have little mini whiteboards, little iPads that your children use, and you can do it on there. But just coming up with a shopping list for a character is in itself a game that allows you to then bring something to life, to talk about it as a mini piece of drama, bit of reader's theatre.
I love that one as well. That'd be good. Like you could do Little Red Riding Hood and things like that, couldn't you? Traditional tales would be good for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, I'm just a summary of all of those things. So little short snippets of video as well. So time lapse things are fantastic, aren't they, for science? And like this polar bear one, I love this for science. You could hide the text, couldn't you, and say what forces, what sort of when it comes to friction and stuff, how can you explain how and why the polar bear has just crossed the ice, that sort of thing. That one's a volcano erupting. So again, coming down to that, and this one's an art idea as well. They didn't load, but you get the gist of, if you go on YouTube, they're called shorts as well, so you can just play with them. They're like less than a minute, and again, it's not about watching the whole video, it's again watching snippets, which are brilliant. Also for them to star in video, and I know sometimes it's a lot of effort when it comes to you and controlling the class and links to behaviour, but the efforts are amazing. This is something I did in 2019 with my class, linked to David Attenborough, who is my, a god when it comes to anything about animals and our planet. You can't hear the children, but they produced for our school a fantastic, it was overwhelmingly emotional, as you can imagine, with all the facts about the hot and cold places. And they just seeing themselves, we had popcorn and everything, and it was just a real event and an audience for the children as well. Changing the words to a song, and we've done that, and we've also changed lyrics to things. So my class is one of the classes I taught last year, we changed the words to Coldplay's Yellow, and they could choose a different colour and everything, but again it was that playing with language. When they write real invitations that they are posted, and when they design desserts, that they've got a range of ideas in front of them as well, like real life contexts are key, aren't they? And for older children as well, it's things like form filling, both online and in person as well, like getting their words across when it comes to describing themselves for potential career opportunities in the future. You'll laugh at me here. Obviously, I was telling the news with two of my students. We'd just been doing that was the gunpowder plot, and obviously it made the BBC News at 10, and so there are my two co-readers reading the news with me. And really sharing those facts, so that was brilliant as well. And when you do get this PowerPoint, you can delve in and press these buttons, and they'll give examples of the things I've done in school. So a real cheese toasty sandwich, but I turned the volume down, so the children had to stand at the front, and as it was playing, they use those wonderful words and adjectives and things to describe how the sandwich was being made. Again, just that celebration of it doesn't always have to be written down, does it? You are still learning, you are still enabling yourself to communicate effectively with your peers as well. And again, some other short burst writing, give it an audience, edit only when needed. Controversial, I suppose, but if you wrote a letter, would you screw it up 3 times and then write it in best? Probably not, okay? So there's a time for editing, maybe when it is published or there is an audience involved. But again, it comes back to that beauty and that excitement of writing just because we want to. So, and it doesn't have to be an essay, it can be those little notes, start a writing club, a takeaway menu and things like that. Again, I've used the spin function on here, and they can stop And I use ChatGPT, again, my best friend. If you want any ideas or any of the resources I've sort of used ChatGPT for, then please do ask, because it saves you so much time and it can be just instant as you think of something. We talked about this earlier, didn't we? That element of choice, those unopened doors, exploring the value of providing children with a degree of autonomy. And I think that's really important. It gives them ownership, like you all quite rightly said. And CUSP, a big tick there, they agree with that as well. There should be an element of choice to each lesson. Here's something that I shared with my class as well, sometimes in the classroom. So today we're going to summarise our learning, maybe on a Friday. You can choose whatever one you want, be it a writing idea, be it an artistic approach, or based on performance. And all of those wonderful ideas that Helen has shared this afternoon. When we did an art lesson, and this was an art lesson in reception, we didn't make fridges and all of these wonderful things, but there was an element of choice there. So we learned about Mondrian, but we did it in different ways. And the amount of motivation I got out from that, from having different stations and different ideas and things that they'd come up with themselves, but still incorporating the learning behind why Mondrian created art pieces like he did, was so powerful. And I'd do that for every single lesson if I could. Scratch cards, they're amazing. If you want the recipe, it's fairy liquid and something else, and I'll share the recipe with you. A balloon, a helium balloon, or just a balloon on the wall with something inside it. Oh, the anticipation, even for the older ones, is it's amazing, and it's electric in the classroom. Something hidden under a chair, or a letter that's just been delivered by the school secretary. What could that be? Something locked away, so they need a code, a bit like my catchphrase thing earlier. Escape rooms, I've got a brilliant maths escape room, and I'll send that to you today, and you can overwrite mine with different problems according to ages and things like that. So don't feel that you have to reinvent the wheel. I'm going to send you all of this wonderful stuff this afternoon. Something locked away, and again, being my early years hat on, play is serious yet not serious. It's trivial yet profound, and it's all about that imagination, isn't it? And from another perspective, it's a gift that makes life on earth worthwhile. That discovery approach, learning because you want to learn, again coming back to autonomy. Just a really quick poll. I know we're nearly at the end, but I want your we need your 50 words as well. Just answer this one. Do you feel pressure to produce something on paper for every lesson? Is that sort of, am I guessing right? Is that the sort of climate, do you think, when it comes to got to get things in books? Oh, that's really interesting. Keep going. At times you're sitting on the fence. I don't blame you. So yeah, at times. Okay, I'm glad that no is a lower percentage. I really am. That's 21 of you, 23 of you partaking in that. So yeah, so that's good. It's not zero. That's what I was worried about, and to change that to statistic is sort of my aim. And I'll speak to all of the principals as well, that just because they've got something on paper doesn't mean they've learned it. And I think that's going back to the previous points that we've both made today, not necessarily. Okay, so we talked about drama. It's I love this quote. It's my favourite lesson. When I do things in drama, I can sort of see them. In drama, you can actually do it and you can really understand it. And for some children, that's absolutely how they learn, isn't it? That multi-sensory approach, and that engagement, that motivation, and just another way of learning. Song as well, that exposure to music. I love this last bit. Listening to music can enhance the learning experience and promote a positive classroom ambience, and I think that's really important. Just play music, celebrate music across the curriculum as well. Again, changing the lyrics, looking into rhythm of poems as well, that sort of thing. And just to summarise, a CUSP tick once again. I asked Lauren, should we be prescriptive to CUSP? Should we follow it all? Is there any scope for being creative practitioners when we come to delivering this CUSP curriculum, which is very new to Avanti? And this is what she said. I'll let you read that yourself. So it's that semantic memory, which is a link to the experience that we provide and the knowledge, sorry, and then the episodic memory, which is those experiences that they cling on to and they remember in their heads as well. So episodic, semantic, and then that recall. And it's that thing, do you know, like that pub quiz when you're there, oh, I know that straight away. And then there's that, oh, hold on, I know that. And it's on the tip of your tongue and you need a bit of time, a bit of chew it time. And then there's the things that you just don't know that you have to come back to and learn as a process as well. And I love this bit towards the end, the connecting of knowledge. It's the semantic memory and building on that. It's the teacher's skill and knowledge of their children, your children, that will set this knowledge in children's episodic memories through explicit instruction and then rich and varied opportunities to explore. And she is an advocate for doing all of the things that we've said today. So don't be afraid to have a go. And then I love it, this whole bit linked to research, but that last phrase, we couldn't advocate joyful, active classrooms more. And so it's from the horse's mouth, shall we say, but there we go, it's in writing that they want us to be creative. They don't want to put a block on anything to do with creativity in the classroom, which is music, I hope, to your ears and also to mine. So again, an amazing lecturer can explain things in such a way as to make students feel like they are learning more than they actually are. So bringing it to that point where learning needs to be at the forefront of all we do, and this pedagogy, that we've built on today, is important. Going back to Mary Meyert's, don't make it fun. Make sure everyone can join in. Don't ability seat. Let everyone have the same opportunities, because it's fair for those and it gives those less advantage the same opportunities as the others as well. So everyone is on a par and everyone can partake. And I love this quote, and this is us, I think, sometimes, or you now, is your practitioners, the grassroots. You are in the classrooms, and sometimes you're scared, you're sort of apprehensive to take a risk and all of that. But a ship is safe in harbour, but that's not what ships are for. And I really think this really resonated with me, of being, yeah, we need to take risks, we need to be creative and just think outside the box, which you all can do, but maybe recently we've been less ambitious or more hesitant to do so. So let's change those habits, let's take those risks, let's observe children and just rejoice at what they do know and build on that prior knowledge. Let them discover or play. I think that's a really important element. And that experience, give them the experiences that you want as a human being as well. They only get one education, and this year they're spending it with you, and what fantastically lucky children they are. So in summary, a huge thanks. Times have changed. It's not fun versus learning, but it's fun via learning, and that's important. The AI approach, ChatGPT, that creating images through computer-generated designs, all of that sort of thing is important. The best classroom resource that they have got is you, and it always will be. You are the key to their success, and always bring it back to children's learning. And I love this, and we'll end on this, and then you can go back and do your 50 words if you will, please, because your input is vital to our forward steps. What we learn with pleasure, we never forget. And I think that's just so powerful, isn't it? Let's just have fun. Let's bring creativity back. You are the professionals, and we trust you with our children, and what lucky children they are. So I'm going to go back to the other slide if I can find it. But thank you. Helen, do you want to just fill in the gap while I am finding the other one? Thank you so much, everyone.
Yeah, that's such a nice quote, isn't it? That, you know, that's not what ships are for. I think that's so important to remember, is that we do have to take risks. It's okay to take a risk and for it to go a bit wrong, because what we'll learn from that will help us next lesson and next lesson. And these children are with you for the year, and what lucky children they are, as Beck said. And let's be safe and let's explore on those choppy seas sometimes, but you know, it's within our gift to calm the seas, and we'll get there quicker if we're able to do these creative, fun things that make a difference.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for your participation. I know we've delivered a lot, but hopefully all of those wonderful ideas and some of Helen's are fantastic. I really want to get back in the classroom really and spend time with children just enjoying learning again. That would be amazing, and I do miss it terribly. But if I can come and speak to you in your classrooms, then do invite me, because I'd love to see you and see all of these wonderful ideas put to use, and that feedback from you to say which ones are winners in the class would be amazing. So huge thank you to you. I will, like I said, I will email you all of the templates if you'd like them. So please, I've got your attendance now, so I've got your email, and I can send you all of those, the templates, the PowerPoints, everything that you can tweak and make your own. Please feel free to use them as you will and amend as appropriate. Lovely things coming through, Helen.
I know. Do you know what? Vanity Trust, I love working with Vanity so much. You're so kind. You're a really kind trust.
Yeah,
I really get the sense. I've worked with a lot of academy trusts, and there is a real kindness to the Vanity colleagues. I mean, that's so kind of yours to say thank you like that. Not everybody does.
Oh, these are lovely.
Good. Well, do you know what? We should, if any of you were on Twitter, maybe share what you're doing and tag us in it. I'm on Twitter, and Vex is as well. So tag us in it or share away and let us know in another way. But I'd love to see what you do as a result of the training.
Yeah, just love all of those little 5 minutes, and just add a game, add a question, add an element of fun in your teaching. If you've got any questions, then please, we'll hang around for 5 or 10 minutes. But if you need to get away, we know we're over time. But huge thanks. You've just been amazing. Your participation and all of those words, I'll collaborate all of that together, and I'll share that with you, because that's a really rich and wonderful piece of work that you've created this afternoon. But don't forget, it's transferable from age 4 to 40. There's no age limit on where people love to have fun, is there? And I know I do myself. So yeah, and if something goes brilliantly well, let's keep this chat function open and we'll share it. I did this today and it was amazing. I'd love that. I'd love for you to keep in touch. So thank you so much, everyone. Have a lovely rest of your day. I think Louise is going to be sending about a quick, literally a less than a minute feedback form. If you can all fill out your thoughts and what went well and things that we might change for next year. But huge thanks, and have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your week.